The word Spartan has echoed through history as the ultimate symbol of discipline, sacrifice, and brute military force. We picture the 300 at Thermopylae, and unbreakable phalanx of bronze and scarlet cloaks. We imagine a society where every man was a soldier, raised from birth for war. This image is powerful, but it's incomplete. Sparta wasn't just a warrior culture, it was a massive, and stable, and ultimately tragic social experiment. For about 2 centuries, this single Greek city-state managed to forge itself into the dominant military power in the ancient Greek world. To understand Sparta's rise, we have to go back to its origins and its greatest fear. The vast majority of the population were the Helots, a subjugated, enslaved Greek population from neighboring Messenia that Sparta had conquered. Every brutal institution, every seemingly insane law, was designed to solve one problem: how can a tiny elite maintain total control over a massive, hostile, and internal enemy? The answer was to turn every Spartan male into a perfect soldier and to structure their entire society as a permanent military camp on a war footing against its own people. This is where the legendary agoge comes in. This state-mandated education and training system was the engine that produced Spartan warriors. But it was far more than just tough boot camp. At age 7, every Spartan boy was taken from his family and placed in a communal barracks. He entered a brutal world of calculated hardship. The goal was to forge absolute loyalty to the group, to the state, and to instill an iron discipline that would hold the phalanx together in the heat of battle. They were unearthed to encourage stealth and theft, though punished if caught. They were subjected to brutal physical contests, like the infamous whipping competition at the altar of Artemis Orthia. But a critical pro-tip often missed: the agoge was also an intellectual and social education. Boys were taught to speak with a famous laconic brevity, to be sharp and decisive. They were taught the myths and songs that glorified Spartan sacrifice. It was a total indoctrination, creating a mind as disciplined as the body. By age 20, those who survived graduated and entered a session, a military dining mess, where they would live, eat, and bond with their comrades for the rest of their lives. Marriage was allowed, but the primary loyalty was always to the mess and the phalanx. This system produced soldiers of phenomenal cohesion and courage. Their drill was unmatched. While other Greek armies were citizen militias, the Spartans were true professionals. On the battlefield, this gave them a colossal advantage for generations. With this perfect military machine, Sparta began its rise to hegemony. Its power was built on a foundation of alliances, specifically the Peloponnesian League, a network of city-states Sparta led, partly through reputation and partly through intimidation. But Spartan land was not distributed equally. Over centuries, through inheritance and dowries, land concentrated into the hands of fewer and wealthier families. Many poorer Spartans fell into debt, failed to make their mess contributions, and lost their full citizenship, becoming so-called inferiors. The number of full Spartiates plummeted. At the time of Thermopylae in 480 BC, there were perhaps 8,000 Spartiates. By the time of Sparta's peak after the Peloponnesian War, that number had fallen to maybe 3,000. A century later, it was below 1,000. The military machine was running out of the one irreplaceable resource it was built on: its own people. The rigid system forbade social mobility and was economically stagnant, offering no solution to this slow bleed. The second fatal flaw was economic naivety and corruption. Sparta famously disdained trade and luxury, using heavy iron bars as currency to discourage hoarding wealth. But after winning its empire, it was flooded with Persian gold and tribute. This new wealth, in the hands of a few powerful families, corrupted the very fabric of their equal society. The old ideals of austerity broke down as elites pursued private luxury. The focus shifted from service to the state to personal enrichment. Furthermore, Sparta had no administrative class. Its citizens were soldiers, not bureaucrats or diplomats. Trying to manage an empire with a handful of arrogant, militarily trained governors was a disaster. They alienated allies, sparked revolts, and proved utterly incapable of the subtle art of governance. Their greatest strength, single-minded focus on war, became their greatest weakness in peace. The fall, when it came, was swift and decisive. The other Greek states, particularly Thebes, resented Spartan dominance. A Theban general of genius named Epaminondas studied the Spartan system and identified its key weakness: its reliance on a deep, crushing phalanx anchored by a small core of elite Spartiates. At the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC, Epaminondas innovated. He stacked his left wing 50 men deep, directly opposite the Spartan king and his best troops. This unprecedented mass, combined with his elite sacred band, shattered the Spartan right wing. For the first time in history, a Spartan army was decisively defeated in pitched battle by a smaller force. Hundreds of the remaining full Spartiates were killed, a loss their dwindling population could not absorb. The myth of invincibility was broken forever. The following year, Epaminondas marched into the Peloponnese itself and did the unthinkable. He liberated Messenia, freeing the Helots and severing the economic foundation of the Spartan state. Without the Helots to work their land, the Spartan system became an empty shell. In the end, Sparta's collapse was a tragic inevitability. It designed a perfect, closed system to solve the problem of controlling Helots. That system produced legendary warriors and allowed it to dominate a fractured Greece. But the system had no capacity for adaptation, growth, or change. It was brittle. When external circumstances shifted, when it won an empire, when new tactical innovations emerged, when wealth poured in, it could not bend, so it broke. Its rigid social structure led to its demographic suicide. Its disdain for economics and governance made empire impossible. Its military dogma was eventually outthought. Sparta fell because the very things that made it strong were the things that made it incapable of surviving its own success. It remains a powerful lesson in history. A society that sacrifices everything for a single strength may achieve glorious heights, but it builds its own obsolescence into its foundation. The phalanx was perfect until the world changed. And Sparta could not.